A warm welcome to this special commemoration event. This afternoon we will be marking the burial site of the Scottish soldiers who died in Durham in the autumn of 1650 after the Battle of Dunbar. My name is Chris Gerard. I'm an archaeologist and proud to represent the Durham team who have worked together over the past 3.5 years on this project. And many of you, I know, have just this afternoon been on a tour of the archaeology department and seen some of the techniques that we've been using to try to learn more about the Scottish soldiers. I hope that's been informative and provides some context for you. For us, it's been an extraordinary journey from the discovery of the human remains in November 2013 to the announcement of their identification in the autumn of 2015, and now to be with you here today. And at times, that journey, I say this on behalf of my colleagues, has been unexpected. It's been sometimes overwhelming, and it's always been intriguing. And we have come to understand together that this is research with a purpose which somehow reaches beyond the merely academic. We wanted this occasion to be small and simple, and for those who are attending today to be representative of all the different groups who we've met in the UK, both in England and in Scotland, and of course in the US. So first and foremost, thank you all for being with us here today, and I know that some of you have travelled 3,000 miles to do just that. This is not a religious service, but it is intended to be reflective, and I will be asking for a minute of silence a little later in the proceedings. In a moment, Professor David Cowling, Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Arts and Humanities at the University, will be telling us about the commemorative plaque and next steps in our research. But first, Professor Stuart Corbridge, the Vice-Chancellor of the University, will say a few words about the purpose of the event and all those who have contributed to it.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. So I'm Stuart Corbridge, the Vice-Chancellor. And this is an extraordinary commemoration that we're involved with, and I can quite well see why the research process has been overwhelming, as Chris just described it. We're here today, of course, to commemorate the lives of Scottish soldiers from the Battle of Dunbar who died here in Durham. The Battle of Dunbar took place in Dunbar, East Lothian, Scotland, in 1650. The Scottish army, commanded by David Leslie, fought against the English parliamentary forces under Oliver Cromwell. As we know, the Scots were defeated and thousands of Scottish soldiers were taken as prisoners of war. They were forced to march to Durham Cathedral in England, where they arrived on the 11th of September 1650. In November 1650, approximately 150 of the survivors were deported from Gravesend in England, down by London, to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, arriving in Charlestown, now incorporated, I think, in Boston, in late December 1650. There they were indentured into hard labour for approximately 6 to 8 years. However, most of the men survived their period of indenture and bought land, married, and settled down to raise families. They now have thousands of descendants living throughout the United States of America and elsewhere, a point I will return to. However, of the estimated 3,000 Scottish soldiers who were first imprisoned in Durham, it's thought that around 1,700 died, and until recently, their place of burial was unknown, and with it, a fuller understanding, as you will hear tonight if you go to Evensong, of their fear, their desolation, and their pain. Now, in large degree, some of that changed with the discovery of human remains on this site, as Chris said, in 2013, during construction work for our new cafe next door, where the commemorative plaque now sits, and we'll all be going off there shortly to see it. This discovery generated an extensive period of analysis led by experts in our world-leading Department of Archaeology, and I hope many of you have been over to the Archaeology Department prior to this ceremony. The analysis concluded that the remains were indeed those of the soldiers from the Battle of Dunbar, a finding that helped solve the near 400-year mystery of their last resting place. Now, as all of you present will know, this discovery stimulated a good deal of interest, not just here locally in the Durham area, but nationally and, of course, internationally. And the project team at Durham, led by Professor David Cowling, who you'll hear from next, our Pro Vice Chancellor for Arts and Humanities, initiated an extensive period of consultation on what the appropriate next steps should be relating to further research, reburial, and commemoration, all quite difficult issues. David will be speaking shortly about where the project has got to in relation to research and reburial, but the focus today, of course, is very much on commemoration. As Chris has said, as David will say, we're delighted that you can all be with us here today, and particularly we're grateful to those of you that have travelled a long way to be here in Durham. And we're grateful to all those of you who have engaged with us throughout our process of consultation. Your input into today's ceremony has been very much welcomed by the university, and it is fitting testimony that you are here today to pay your respects to those who we have been privileged to learn about over the last couple of years. Now, the plaque, which you will all have the opportunity to view shortly, is befittingly situated at the site where the remains were first discovered and exhumed, and where further burial sites remain. It's very important for all of us at Durham University to extend our thanks to all those who have helped make today possible. I would like to thank on behalf of the university Tarmac for generously giving their time and resources to provide us with the stone which the plaque is mounted on. The stone is of significance itself as it comes from a quarry located directly over the site of the Battle of Dunbar. We felt it would be fitting to use this specific stone in the creation of the plaque. Thanks also go to St. Astia stonemasons, who've overseen the creation of the plaque in conjunction with colleagues here in our estates department and Croft Castings. Thank you to all of you. We'd also like to thank the Scottish Prisoners of War Society in the US, who are coordinating a fundraising campaign for the plaque. Your support, their support, is also very much appreciated, and of course highly pertinent given the links to the United States. Thanks must also be extended to the Cathedral, who will be leading some elements of this commemorative event and who've worked closely with the project team in the university. I hope many of you will be able to join us in the Cathedral for Evensong at 5:15, where there will be a rededication of the memorial to the soldiers imprisoned in the cathedral in 1650 and 1651. Finally, thanks must go again to all of you attending today. I do know that many of you have travelled a long way. In particular, I would like to thank Professor Baker for travelling from Salem State University to deliver a public lecture tonight in conjunction with Dr. Pam Graves from our project team here at Durham. That is a lecture that's open to the public, and we are being quite heavily subscribed for that. So it's our hope today as a university that this commemoration can go some way to giving back some dignity to those who died here 367 years ago. Throughout the Scottish Soldiers Project, we've endeavoured to give these individuals a voice in our history. And we hope now that the plaque can be a fixed memorial to their presence here on Palace Green. So welcome, everybody. I'm going to hand over now to David Cowling and then again to Chris, two colleagues who've been much more centrally involved in the story of the Scottish soldiers, and they will be telling you about aspects of the project in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor, and a very warm welcome from me to all who are attending today. As the Vice-Chancellor said, my name's David Cowling. I'm the university's Pro-Vice-Chancellor for the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and it's been my great honour and privilege to lead on behalf of the university's Executive Committee the team of Durham archaeologists who have done so much to shed light on the lives, deaths and legacy of the Scottish soldiers discovered on this site. My purpose today is to provide a brief update on the team's research work to date, to explain how the plaque that we are about to view took on its final form, and to tell you about our plans to keep the soldiers' memory alive through an exhibition in this building. So, scientific research on the skeletal remains of the Scottish soldiers has been continuing in our Department of Archaeology over the last several months, and we are now poised to make some further exciting announcements on the results of this work. This will include analysis, which we've carried out in collaboration with the universities of York and Oxford, of the micro-debris contained in the plaque or dental calculus of the teeth of the Dunbar men. This serves as a tiny time capsule of the environment around that individual and can contain evidence of food remains and even soot and microfossils. Biomolecular analysis of calculus also preserves oral bacteria and evidence of human immune system proteins, as well as proteins from food sources such as milk. We have also examined in great detail some of the highly unusual wear patterns on the men's teeth, which may be related to their occupations in life. More detailed analysis of the isotope evidence extracted from the teeth is also expected to give us information on the men's diet through the course of their lives, as well as on the periods of stress that they undoubtedly experienced. And we hope to say more about how the men moved from place to place in the course of their lives. These are just some of the projects underway which will give us extraordinary detail of these men's lives before and after the Battle of Dunbar, detail which is unique for any 17th century population. Finally, a 3D facial reconstruction of one of the soldiers is being prepared for exhibition next year, and I'll say more about the exhibition in a moment. Once this further research work has been completed, we will rebury the remains of the soldiers at the Elvit Hill Road Cemetery in Durham City, close to where they were originally found and less than a mile from this spot. The decision on where to rebury was taken following extensive consultation, as the Vice-Chancellor just said, and we were mindful of our ethical, moral and legal responsibilities throughout. As we've heard, the research team have also travelled to the United States to meet with a large number of descendants of those soldiers who survived imprisonment in Durham Cathedral and who were transported to New England as indentured servants. It's my particular pleasure to be able to put on record the help that we have received from the Descendants group in understanding the lives of the Dunbar survivors, and to welcome some of those descendants to today's event. About 60 of the Scottish soldiers were put to work at the Saugus Ironworks in Massachusetts, and it is from the commemorative plaque at that location, appropriately cast in iron, that we have drawn the inspiration for the imagery used on our own plaque, which features a saltire flanked by twin thistles, as you will shortly see. We were also most fortunate to be able to draw on over 90 responses to the consultation exercise that we organised to seek stakeholders' views on the most appropriate form of commemoration. Whilst reburial will conclude the Scottish Soldiers Archaeology Project, the research team and the university as a whole are committed to continuing to share our knowledge of the soldiers with as wide an audience as possible, and by so doing, to perpetuating their legacy. We plan to do this by means of an exhibition to be held here in Palace Green Library in the course of the summer of 2018, entitled Lost Lives, New Voices, Unlocking the Story of the Scottish Soldiers 1650 to 2018, the exhibition will bring the lives of the soldiers to a broader audience and will showcase the work of our Durham archaeologists, explaining how they came to identify the soldiers and to elucidate the detail of their lives, and how, by so doing, they were able to solve the near 400-year mystery of their burial place. As the Vice-Chancellor has said, though, today is about commemoration. The plaque that we are about to view will be a lasting memorial to all those who died and were buried here, many of whom remain buried on this site. It will be a visible reminder of a turbulent period of our history. Our hope is that all those who have been touched or moved by the story of the Scottish soldiers of Dunbar will be able to visit this site today and in years to come to pay their respects and remember the fallen. I'm now going to hand back to Chris Gerard.
Thank you, David. I've been asked to say a few words on behalf of those descendants of the Scottish soldiers who survived their ordeal in Durham in the autumn of 1650. And I've often reflected on the odds that those descendants could be with us here after 367 years to attend today's event. About 6,000 Scottish prisoners were taken by Cromwell, as the Vice-Chancellor has said, in the early hours of the morning of the 3rd of September 1650. About 1,000 of the wounded, the young and the very old were released, and about 4,000 men were then marched south towards Durham via Newcastle. About 1,000 either die or escape on the course of that march, and 1,600, 1,700 die then in the cathedral and the castle, mostly probably of dysentery, during the autumn here in Durham. Of the 1,400 then who live, about 500 were sent to France as soldiers. 500 went to dig drainage ditches just outside Ely in the fens of East Anglia, large-scale drainage project they were involved with there over several years. Perhaps 100 more were put to work in local coal mines, on salt pans, on the coast, not far away from here. We don't know their names, and so far, the later histories of these people have proved largely elusive. So the battle itself only lasted a few hours, but its impact lasted a lifetime, many lifetimes. 200 Dunbar men were intended for the Virginia plantations, but they never boarded their ship on the Thames. And orders were also sent for large numbers of men to be sent to Ireland, but we don't believe that they went. About 150 did sail on the Unity to Charlestown, as the Vice-Chancellor has said, to work as indentured servants in the ironworks, but also in the timberlands of Massachusetts and Maine. And those men survived to get married, to have children, and they supported each other as friends throughout their life on the frontier. The remarkable Scots Charitable Society, which they helped to found, is the oldest charitable foundation in the Western Hemisphere. The best archaeology and history is really about people. And these were independent characters, described as feisty by one of the descendants. They got into trouble from time to time with the Puritan authorities. And in the north of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, they farmed, they fished, they trapped, and they traded with American Indians, and they saw unimagined forest landscapes, which they called Unity, after the boat that they'd sailed in, and Scotland. To my mind, these are not victims of history. They help to shape it. And as far as I can ascertain, the last Dunbar Scot, Purdy MacFarland, died in 1721, 71 years after the Battle of Dunbar. He had 12 children in his long life. And that's quite a biography, I think you'll agree. To be born in Scotland and to die in Scotland, a different Scotland, as one descendant put it to us when we visited the US last year. So this sense of shared heritage, of Scottish identity, is still important today. The Dunbar families keep in touch with each other through social media. There are clan events and newsletters, and they undertake research of their own. The Dunbar story is also evoked in several works of historical fiction. The battlefield itself can be visited, as well as locations along the march and their places of confinement in Durham and in Tynemouth. The Fenland dikes still flow, and across the Atlantic, the ironworks they served are today the Saugus Ironworks National Historic Site, which has been partially excavated and reconstructed to educate visitors about colonial industry. Evading the local black bears, our new friend, Professor Baker, has shown us some of the remains of the houses built by the Scots that still lie hidden in the woods of Maine. And at least one near-contemporary structure survives on State Route 91, Scotland, Maine, and it's the oldest private house in the United States of America, a colonial log garrison designed to withstand attack. So I wonder, did the Dunbar men ever look out over the river there and talk of home? Did they ever question what had become of their friends who had never left Durham? Their stories today are not forgotten, and I'm privileged to speak on behalf of their descendants and to commemorate their ancestors' brothers in arms, those who were unable to have a second chance at new lives in new lands. At this point, I'd like to ask for a minute's silence to remember those who died here. Thank you. So it only remains for me now to explain what will be happening for the remainder of the day. You're welcome, of course. We hope you will view the plaque with us. And to do that, we're going to go down the stairs to the cafe, almost immediately below where you're sitting on the ground floor. There are some refreshments there to tempt you before we make our way over to Evensong in the cathedral, if you'd like to join us. And there will be a blessing of the cathedral's new plaque. Evensong begins at 5:15. Canon Rosalind is nodding at me vigorously. Yeah, that's correct. So please do take your seats in good time. After Evensong at 6:15, we hope you will return to this room where there will be a joint lecture, as the Vice-Chancellor has mentioned, which will be given by Dr. Pam Graves of the Archaeology Department and Professor Emerson Baker, known to us as TAD, from Salem State University. And that lecture is in this room, so do make sure that you're here for that. In the meantime, please take the opportunity to talk to me, to talk to all of us, all the members of the research team, about the plaque, about the research that's happening now, and about what happens next. So it only remains for me to thank you all very much for coming. Thank you.